On this edition of Street Kung Fu, we're going to talk about real Jeet Kune Do versus emulated Jeet Kune Do, or, lack of a better way to say it, fake Jeet Kune Do. Stick around. What's going on, YouTube fam? This is Sifu Jimmy Manfredy here, coming at you once again for Street Kung Fu with my assistant, as always, Isaac Jones. And today we want to talk about a very interesting topic. I've had a few people personally come up in recent days, and also via correspondence, email, Instagram, stuff like that. You know, they're DMing me, asking me questions, which I love, by the way. By all means, do that below as well, comment, you know, keep the dialogue going. But the subject really is about JKD, aka Jeet Kune Do, which was, you know, created by the legendary Bruce Lee. You know, no matter how you feel about him, the man created a very, very, very comprehensive fighting method, concept, system, however you want to call it. I personally like to think of it as a fighting concept, you know what I mean, a combat concept, because in his philosophy, you cater it to yourself. You know what I mean? You learn from an instructor, obviously, everything that you can, and then you start melding it to yourself. You start creating your own, as he put it, self-expression through the art, okay? Now, with Bruce Lee, if you don't know, Bruce Lee's first system of martial art was Wing Chun Kung Fu, you know, taught to him by the legendary Ip Man. Again, however you feel about these people, that's on you. You know, Ip Man was not the creator of Wing Chun. It has, in recent years, since, you know, his time, become one of the most famous, if not the most famous known practitioner of the art. But there are tons of great practitioners from other lineages that were spawned from his teacher, which was Chun Master, and then Leung Jan, and you know, however far back you want to go in the on the lineage tree, okay? And at the end of the day, on the street, let's make this clear: on the street, lineage doesn't matter. It's all on you. What you learn from whatever art you study, no matter what it is on you. You can't blame your instructors. You can't blame where it came from. You can't blame what book you read it in, what video you watched. It's all on you. If you don't train it and drill it, you know, you'll never be able to use it properly. Plain and simple, okay? So with that said, the most common question I've been asked is, you know, how do I feel about Jeet Kune Do practitioners or self-proclaimed or otherwise, that look like they fight exactly like Bruce Lee? It's not a sensitive subject, but it's a weird subject to kind of actually come across. It's not the first time I've been asked that, and it guaranteed it won't be the last time I'll be asked that. But when it comes down to it, like I said before, Bruce Lee created the system, obviously to evolve martial arts, but as a form of your own personal self-expression. So, for instance, let's say if you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, first and foremost, that's the first martial art you ever learned, you know, what's your first skill set? Grappling, okay? If you are a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner that goes out and learns boxing, well, now you just sharpen up your hands, but your first practice is still grappling. You know what I mean? And you start learning some Muay Thai to add to kickboxing. What does that start rounding off into, guys? MMA methodology. You know what I mean? And vice versa, if you're a boxer, you know, and then you learn some kicking, you become a kickboxer, but you're still dominant with your hands. You know, then you go and start to learn some grappling. So now you can work the ground more, you know, whether you stay there long enough to get a black belt or not, now you can work the ground. Still MMA principle, but in a different methodology, because it's your methodology of wherever you started, okay? So if you're a dominant boxer, your hands are going to be just wicked. If you're a kickboxer, you know, K1 style, in my case, Sanda, K1-ish, you know what I mean? and also Muay Thai and stuff like that. If you're a Muay Thai fighter, what you're going to use? You're going to use a lot of elbows, a lot of knees, the clinch, you know, for days, you know, dumping like crazy. Sanda, I can, you know, grab you, I can toss you, you know. And then that, depending on how you fight Sanda Sancho, you can be on a platform and no ring ropes. You can be on, you know, in a ring. And nowadays you could even be in a cage kickboxing. So then MMA, you know, grappling. You know, we've all seen grapplers in MMA dominate. We've all seen strikers in MMA dominate. We've seen a combination of the two dominate. I mean, it depends on you. It's a form of self-expression. Now, with that said, you know, in some circles, MMA is considered, you know, a spawn of Jeet Kune Do, of Bruce Lee's methodology, of his concept, because it's mixing martial arts. I mean, in my opinion, I've always said, and I will always say, almost every martial art is a mixture of martial systems, which is a mixture of martial arts. You know, almost every martial art, you know, at one point or another mixed with something else to create more to the system. So, and that's my opinion. I mean, we can go on about that forever. But with Jeet Kune Do specifically, again, it's a form of self-expression. So when the subject comes up where, you know, people, they send me videos and stuff like that and be like, hey, look at this guy, he's mimicking Bruce Lee damn near to the mannerisms, to the smirks on the face every time he demos something or whatever, what have you. Well, what I have to say about that is, if they are a legitimately trained, and it's kind of hard to consider someone who wasn't a direct descendant in lineage. Again, I know lineage doesn't fight for you, but if for instance, if your instructor didn't study from Bruce himself nowadays, you know what I mean? And then years from now, if, you know, same thing, if that person didn't learn from that person, you can't really sit here and go, well, yeah, I'm a full-on certified Jeet Kune Do instructor, at least in my experience. You know, there are very, very few people who got certified by Bruce Lee in Jeet Kune Do in any way, shape, or form. The most well-known is obviously Danny Inosanto, Taki Kimura, and a few other people, you know, Jesse Glover. So keep that in mind, all right? And each one of them had their own skill set beforehand. There was only a couple who didn't, you know, especially Danny Inosanto. Danny Inosanto is, you know, a Filipino martial art guru, you know, in his own right, and he came with that skill beforehand. You know, Taki Kimura had his own skills, you know, Larry Hartzell, a whole bunch of other people in the Jeet Kune Do world that had their own skill set going in. So what ended up happening was they adapted that skill set to what they learned, and their Jeet Kune Do was born, all right? And you've got tons of great practitioners of the arts, you know? Now, in my case, I've always said, and I always will say, I'm a Kung Fu practitioner, okay? I can box, I can kickbox, I can work the ground, you know. I love Wing Chun because of Bruce Lee. I was always a big fan of Bruce Lee, you know, and his son Brandon and his daughter Shannon. And they were major, like, influences visually to me. And also in books and all kinds of knowledge I've read and studied with other people, you know, other people I've been able to touch hands with and talk to in the art, you know. And it developed my variation of my Jeet Kune Do. Again, will it fit you? Who knows? Will it fit him and he's my student? Who knows? My goal is to actually make sure that the way he fights fits him, not emulates me. I mean, obviously he's learning his skill from me, but it's his skill. I have to make it fit him. He can't do certain things that I can do. I can't do certain things he can do. Just physically impossible because we're two completely different people. Okay? I'm a little bigger than he is. I'm a little taller than he is. He's a lot thinner than I am. You know, so, you know, I believe it or not, as big as I am, I'm a lot more flexible than he is. You know, so depending on the person, it changes, all right? So emulating Bruce Lee, you know, going back to that. Mimicking his movements, I mean, we've all done it. I've done it. You know, there's certain things that when I fight and I get playful, you know, I still do, like my hands. You know, Bruce has always been famous for doing this, okay? There's statues of him all over China with it. There's even a statue here in the States, in California, with him, you know, holding the same stance, okay? So emulating certain things, that's, I mean, in my opinion, that's the greatest form of flattery. You know, when you mimic certain things of someone who was a major impact on your decision making in certain things, okay? You know, but, and this is where we kind of go right into left field, all right? But emulating him, his mannerisms that you picked up over time that became second nature is one thing. If you are a martial artist and you're training and you studied, you know, and actually, you know, followed that path, and you're actually in the studio, dojo, dojang, whatever you want to call it, and you're sparring, you're doing drills. You know, for instance, if Bruce Lee in the movies would always do like really dynamic poses and stuff like that after he struck someone super hard. So am I gonna go, you know, no, I'm not gonna do that, okay? Now, breathing out obviously is part of it. Bruce Lee had a unique way to do it, and he would ha, you know, just make noise when he did it, and you know, some people criticize it to this day, but that was his way of letting out and expelling that internal energy, so he didn't hold his breath every time he struck, and he would get winded. All right. Now, does that mean if I go 1, 2, 3, you know, and the form's a little bad here because I'm going slow just to give you a point. It won't work? No. That just means that even if I do make it work, I'm not going to sit here, you know, like I just finished doing something and look at my fist and go, ah! I'm not going to do that, okay? I'm going to get in, get out, and move. It's the way of the intercepting fist. That means I got to get in before he can hit me, okay? It's no different in boxing. What's the science of boxing? Hit and don't be hit. You know, that's why you bob, weave, and sway and do all that good stuff. That's why you work on slipping drills and all that stuff, right? So if I'm here and I go, boom, what? I'm not going to stay right here, okay? Look where his hand is. I'm going to get popped, okay? And if I do that and I get popped, it's my fault because I decided, oh, look, I'm gonna stand here and give you a cute little pose. No. Okay? You move, you hit. Again, mannerisms. If I pick up, if you notice that when I do it, the way my hands get shaped and the way they move, they have a slight emulation to it. Because, you know, I spent a long time in my martial career, again, idolizing and emulating a lot of stuff he did, took in all his writings about fluidity and all that stuff. And yeah, I grew up on his movies. So in every video I've ever seen outside of his movies, I watched his mannerisms. Why? Because I wanted to be like Bruce. Almost every Jeet Kune Do practitioner, okay, wants to know what Bruce knew. Unfortunately, he left this earth way too soon to share everything that was in his head. But what we do have, we all try to reach for that as much as we possibly can. And it starts with mimicry, emulation, you know? And it's a double-edged sword like damn near everything else. If you focus on just the mimicry, okay, then you forget this is combat, okay? This is defense, you know? This is fighting, you know, whatever you want to call it. I mean, in my mind, it's defense. We're doing this for the street. That's why the name of the channel is Street Kung Fu, okay? Kung Fu literally translated means great skill through hard work, okay? It's not a mystical mindset, you know, even though there are some Kung Fu systems that want you to be a lot more cerebral and metaphysical in certain ways and philosophical in certain ways. And martial arts is a philosophical mindset, don't get me wrong, in its own right. But it is combat, warfare. Martial arts, if you take the word martial art and you look in the dictionary and you break up those two words, so martial and art, it will say warlike study and creation of beautiful things. You do the math from there, okay? Warlike study. All martial arts is taking a warlike study and mindset and making it look good while you do it. That's really what it's meant for. You know, hypothetically, that's why you go doing all that stuff. You try to make it look very beautiful while you do it. The forms are beautiful. But the forms, whether beautiful or not, have a purpose. Whether they're dated is irrelevant, okay? We do martial arts in the traditional mindset to keep the tradition alive. But even in those traditional training methods, reality is still in there, okay? I mean, am I going to fight a guy and I'm going to be like this? Hell no. But that doesn't mean that in that same form where I do this to get into this position, if he grabs me or something, right, I don't go like that and get him off me. Do I have to stay in the pose when I'm done? No. I just need to get his ass off me. Period. So that same thing when I go nice and slow, when I'm going here, I'm coming down and up. That's that position. You know what I mean? So do I have to go and do everything else that goes with the form? No, I just have to get him off me, strike, and get him off me even further, and then get the hell out of there. Okay? It's self-defense. Street Kung Fu is literally to make sure you get home. Period. Okay? So again, going back to the emulation, do I want to do all that? No. Do I want to do my kicks and be here and go all that? No. You know, do I want to jump in the air and make those crazy noises and then flail my hands out and do all that? No, because all he's going to do is sidestep and pummel me, you know? And if he's big enough, he'll grab me out the damn sky and slam me. I would. You know, it's the most common sense thing to do. You're trying to do a flying kick past me, you know, clothesline him. I mean, it's easy to stop flourishes if you don't know what you're doing. And when you're emulating someone that you watched on a movie screen, you know, that's a problem. Because regardless of what you may think, no matter how much of a martial genius you think Bruce Lee is, you know, and I do think he was a martial genius way ahead of his time, you know, there's always a very fine line between what you see on screen, because he was a movie star as well. So what you're seeing on screen that you're emulating in his movies is choreographed by him, but it's still choreographed to look good on camera, okay? That means he's positioning people in the right place so the camera can catch the right angle. We'll give examples of that in a future video. You know, I do stunt work as well. I've got plenty of friends in the stunt industry, you know, that are in movies that you've watched. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and name drop. I'm not that kind of guy. But, you know, you'll go watch a movie. Tell me if anything you see in a movie, even though it gets you out of your seat going, whoa! If you would try that on the street against somebody that's actually trying to hurt you, you know, or if you actually believe it would, you know, a lot of the grandiose things you see would work on the street, you know, because 9 times out of 10, the big grandiose gestures won't work, you know, and not because they're not effective, okay? They won't work because A, you doubt them, and B, the situation usually won't call for it. You know, I mean, what's a street fight consist of? A lot of arguing verbally first, closure of space, okay? And then their focus solitarily is to try to hit you in the face, usually. Because they want to shut the argument up. So it's like, man, shut up, and then they swing, you know? Very seldom do you, even in trained fighters, this is the craziest part, even in trained fighters, very seldom will you see a fight start and the fighter will back up and get into a solid position before the first punch is ever thrown, okay, or the first push or whatever, get into an actual good position and jab and actually work it like they're in a ring, Okay, very seldom. Now, I've seen it happen. I've been fortunate enough that in some fights I've had on the street, unfortunately, you know, I've jumped into position and defended myself, you know. But in my early career, when I got into fights back home in New York, I mean, come on. I wasn't that refined. I would start swinging like everybody else, and I trained for years, you know. So it just gives you a very, very different perspective when you think about it that way. So please, if you're studying Jeet Kune Do under an instructor, you know, and by all means, learn everything. I'm not saying what you're doing isn't going to work. Jeet Kune Do is a phenomenal system. I do it, and I consider everything I do for street fighting my concept of Jeet Kune Do, a Jeet Kune Do concept. I studied with plenty of practitioners. I know a ton of Jeet Kune Do practitioners that's all they do. You know, I've been fortunate enough to have conversation with many established and esteemed practitioners of Jeet Kune Do, okay? And I've been lucky to be able to learn from a lot of them as well. So I'm fortunate when it comes to that, okay? So I do believe that what I do, mixing all the other styles that I've learned from, you know, boxing, kickboxing, Wing Chun, you know, Chin Na, you know, drunken boxing, all the 5 animal systems, Southern Mantis, you know, and all those other stuff. I've been fortunate. Taekwondo, Wushu, like, I mean, I can go on and on that I've touched on. I mean, I didn't master them all. I mastered very few of them, and that was the point. And then I took what I could from the rest, and I still do that to this day. I still touch hands with numerous styles that I've never seen or heard of, or, you know, never had the pleasure of training in my lifetime. I still go to those instructors and be like, yeah, you know, teach me, show me stuff, you know. And I keep visiting them, calling them, be like, hey, how would you do something like this? How would you do something like that? You know, and that's martial arts. That's growth, okay? And keep that in mind. Don't blind yourself and tell yourself that you only have to focus on one thing and one thing and one thing. Focus on a lot, you know. Focus on, if you want to focus on one system, obviously focus on that one. Master that system to the best of your abilities. And then if you have the ability to go to another one and do the same, so you can kind of meld them together, do that. You know, make your own version of Jeet Kune Do's concept, guys. And going back to, again, I know I'm kind of going off rambling here, but going back to the whole emulating Bruce. If you want to mimic him, by all means, mimic him, you know. But make sure that when you mimic what he's doing, you can take that and make it work for you. Don't mimic it just to use it as a flourish. Flourishes do not win fights, guys. They don't. You know, you may sell that to other people and make them believe you're the top dog. That shit will only go so far. Sooner or later, somebody is actually going to test your mettle one day. And trust me when I tell you, I've seen it 100 times, shit, maybe thousands of times over my lifetime. I don't know, I lost count. Where guys will sit there and they'll talk up a good game about what they know, and then all of a sudden somebody actually is in front of them, and then they'll do that, all that, you know, basically faking it, and they get destroyed. And then you'll find out that these guys were teaching people, that they had classes, and they would they'd have 10, 20, even maybe more people listening to them intently, believing 100% that what they were selling them, that snake oil they were selling them, is a guaranteed win. Trust me. I mean, go on YouTube. You'll see plenty of failed martial artists all over the world attempting whatever it is they're trying to sell people. And you know, we've come across a few, you know, even when, as long as he's been here, he's been with me now 7 years, going on 8, and even he's come across people with me, and they're talking, and then when we see what they're doing, it's like, yeah, I'm leaving. Whatever you're selling, we don't want it, because you're going to get somebody hurt. You know, there's also another channel by an acquaintance of mine, you know, called Mick Dojo Life, go check it out. You know, tell him Sifu Jimmy Manfredy sent you. All right. He does a phenomenal job exposing these guys, and he actually does due diligence looking into it and exposing these guys. All right. So check him out. McDojo Life. All right. So with that said, if you want to mimic a little, you know, take a mannerism or two, that's fine. Okay. Just make sure it's combatively sound before you try to put it into practice. You know, again, Bruce Lee, he's a legend. And I know everybody loves to see a legend, okay? But here's the thing. If you live long enough, and unfortunately he didn't, most people will want to try to see a legend fall too, okay? And the most common way for people to try to see a legend fall is to try to downplay that person's worth or their life's work, which tons of people do that all the time. And it doesn't matter what system it is. You know, it could be, you know, boxing, it could be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it could be karate, it could be, you know, Wing Chun, it could be, you know, long fist, it doesn't matter, you know, drunken boxing. There's always going to be somebody who's going to be like, man, that don't work, test it on me. And then if you don't know your stuff, you're honestly, you're just going to prove to that person that that doesn't work, and they're never going to be interested in it again. And it wasn't because it doesn't work, it's because you didn't know how to make it work, because you didn't know what you were doing. Okay? So be very, very careful. That's the worst thing you can do. To us martial artists who've been doing this basically for life, I mean, I've been doing this since I was 5 years old, guys. To us, that's the same to us as stolen valor is to a veteran. Okay? That is literally the same to us as stolen valor is to a veteran. So keep that in mind. You see, if you've ever seen a stolen valor video, they're going nuts. Okay? Why? Because that person didn't earn what they're telling people that they have. You know, especially the uniforms and stuff. They didn't earn that. You know, for us, going around saying, yeah, man, I'm a black belt. Or, yeah, I studied this forever and a day, and you don't know what you're doing, and all you're doing is for prestige, that's the same as stolen valor to a veteran to us martial artists, you know? That's kind of why we coined, in this particular industry, lifestyle, however you want to call it, that's why we coined the phrase McDojo, you know, and again, you know, plugging my boy with his McDojo Life YouTube page, Instagram, and everything. Go check them out. That's why we coined that phrase McDojo, because those are schools where somebody can walk in, and no matter how their kid does or how they do, somehow, some way, every single testing cycle, they get promoted. It doesn't matter how good they are. They could suck, and they'll get promoted. There's actually, we've seen one video. You remember that one video we saw where it was a room full of people? It was like a gym class of people in white gis, and all of them had black belts on, and it said 2nd degree black belt testing. Yeah. And it looked like a bunch of orangutans in gis just flailing around. And at the end of the video, they were promoted. And I'm like, man, first of all, I couldn't get a black belt in a Japanese art until I was 18, and there was a lot of kids in there, you know. Second of all, what the hell? Like, they're sitting there going like this, and ha, ha, and they're like, promoted. I'm like, and in karate, my sensei would have killed me. Like, are you kidding? Like, if you've ever seen Kyoko Shinkai karate, like, their kumites, and not like Van Damme kumite in Bloodsport, I'm talking about their kumite, which is sparring, is bare knuckle, okay? And they're hit your body hard, like, seriously. And you got these people just, and then getting promoted, you know? It's crazy. So emulate, you know, take some mannerisms by all means. I do it. I play with people, you know, and I'll, you know, I've got that Bruce Lee shuffle when I do certain things. You know, my hands will get into that Bruce Lee mode from time to time. You know, why? Because I emulated him. It gets there. But when I get into fighting, it's and I get back and I get out of the way. My hand never flies up. You know, you don't ever see me go, you know, jump in the air and do that. My hands don't open wide, you know. I see a lot of people doing that. Even when you do spinning kicks, I'll see people do the spinning kicks and kind of, for some reason, go real wide. You know, what we want to do is create a smaller space, okay? That's why in movies, when you're watching a movie and we're here, you know, we throw punches nice and wide. You know, they'll block, boom, we'll go wide and do that, pow, pow, you know? And we're constantly changing our footing depending on the angle, you know what I mean? Because that's what looks good on camera, so you can see everything that's happening. And if real martial arts were used in movies, you know, like the way they're supposed to be used, and it all depends too, because if you watch John Wick uses a crap ton of real martial arts, real grappling arts, because let's say for what it is, even for movies, when you're in there and you're doing real tight grappling techniques and jumps and rolls and flips, that still looks great, okay? But it still takes a ton of training to learn it, and even then, you're still doing things trying not to hurt your partner, okay? If Wing Chun, for instance, let's take Wing Chun for example, and then we'll end on this note. If Wing Chun, most criticized things in modern martial arts, okay, is our training methods when it comes to like Chi Sao. All right, Chi Sao, for those of you who don't know, is translated sticking hands, okay? And what this is for, guys, all right, let's put this to bed now, because Jeet Kune Do has this training method as well, because it was born from Wing Chun. All right, what this does is create a sensitivity between you and your partner or your opponent. All right, does that mean that if I'm fighting somebody, it's going to be like you know, Donnie Yen's movie Ip Man 3, you know, based on our great grandmaster? All right, that we're going to do all this and then get to here and then start doing this until we start doing this again? No. Okay? If you do and you can pull that off, please videotape it, send it to me. I will blast it for you all over the world. Okay? What it's for is contact sensitivity, okay? In Wing Chun, the second form of Wing Chun is called Chum Kyu. Chum Kyu translated means seeking the bridge, or seek the bridge, okay? The bridge is contact from me to them. That's it, okay? Contact from me to them, okay? Once that bridge is found, then I can do stuff like that, where it's called trapping. You know, trapping is also not putting their arms trapped together on their body, by the way. It's a common misconception. Trapping, okay, is getting them into a position, like let's say like this, okay? Getting them into a position like this, where if I put them a little further in it and they try to raise their hand, it's trapped, okay? All right? Or if they try to move forward, they're trapped, okay? Trapping is exactly how it sounds. When you set a trap, is it sprung when you set it? No. A trap is just that. You're setting a trap for them to fall into and get caught. Okay? It's literally positioning and trapping. You know, so when you see trapping in Wing Chun, you see a lot of people going and pushing it straight down into their body, trying to get them in here. In real life combat, guys, nowadays, unless you're going kung fu against kung fu or martial art against martial art to its fullest, like you're doing a full, you know, it's not gonna go how you think. All right. So when you're in here nowadays, with MMA being one of the most dominant combat sports in the world, when you're in here and you're in positions like this, right? Look where we are. Okay. We're already in a Chi Sao state, a sticking hand state. We're stuck together. We're also in a Chum Kyu state, which is a bridge is sought. We're already here. The bridge is together. We're connected. The rest is doing what we do. When you're doing Muay Thai in a plum clinch and you're doing knees, guess what? Chum Q, Chi Sao. Hands are stuck together. Similar concept, different methodology, different wording. All right? But you're not going to sit here rolling all the time when you're fighting for real. This is just a training method. I'm so tired of getting messages from people. Why do y'all do this? It's a training method. If you can't come in to any martial arts school and listen to why they do certain things and have an open mind, just move on. You know, stop trolling these people going, oh, that's not going to work. You know, and of course there are going to be videos all over the world of people fighting people in certain disciplines, and they're getting owned by someone doing something else, because no matter what discipline you do, at the end of the day, you're the fighter, period. You know, there's a guy in China who's literally, his mission in life is to like defunk traditional Chinese martial arts. Don't know why, don't know what crawled up his ass, but that's like his mission in life, you know, to prove that what he does is the only thing that'll work. But here's the problem with that little scenario. The people he's using as basically a scapegoat for that, I mean, these guys are all retired, they're all old, you know. He's going after people who don't train like he does. And that's why they dominate. Because if you're going up against somebody who's doing it for recreation at this point, or just to pass on knowledge, you know, then are you really testing it? No. Why don't you go against a young, spry practitioner of that system who takes it just as seriously as you take your system seriously, or your fighting method, or whatever it is you're doing as seriously as you are, where they're in there every day hammering it out, getting stronger, getting faster, getting sharper. You know, one of my instructors, his name is Welton Sanders. You know, from when I was younger, he taught me Black Tiger Kung Fu, and he used to say to me, and this is, I mean, a common phrase that you can find in most places, but he used to say to me, iron sharpens iron, you know, or steel sharpens steel. You can't sharpen steel with wood. It ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? You can't sharpen steel with water. You know, it just doesn't work. You have to test your metal against metal. You can't test your metal against everything else, guys. I mean, let's be real, all right? So again, I'll leave it there. Keep that in mind. Sharpen your metal against metal when the time is right. Obviously, take your time, work it out, hammer it out, and then test your metal when the time is right. Because before then, all you're going to do is put yourself off because you tried it when you didn't really know what the hell you were doing. You know, if you want to mimic someone that you've maybe seen on TV, you know, Bruce Lee, like I said, Bruce Lee is one of the most well-mimicked ones because the guy's an icon. He's a legend. You know, unfortunately, he was taken too soon, and he couldn't pass on everything. But there's plenty of books that he wrote, as well as tons of books by people he trained, you know, and other people. I mean, his daughter's still around, moving his message. You know, check her out. That's Shannon Lee. You know, she's got an organization solely promoting her father's works. You know, check her out, Shannon Lee. You know, and you know, just keep it moving, guys. Again, Kung Fu is great skill through hard work. It doesn't matter what system you know. All right, and this is my final thought. I promise. It doesn't matter what system you know, whether it's MMA, karate, taekwondo, tang sudo, Filipino martial arts, which are, you know, Kali, Eskrima, you know, Silat, Savat, Sambo, okay, which is Russian, almost like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu almost. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, okay, Aikido, Wing Chun, drunken boxing, whatever. Understand, that in Chinese vernacular, or in Cantonese, Mandarin, whether you pronounce it Kung Fu or Gong Fu, okay, all it means is great skill through hard work. So if you work hard to create that great skill, to sharpen that steel, then you have Kung Fu. With that said, I'm Sifu Jimmy Manfredy. My assistant is always Isaac Jones. This is Street Kung Fu. Like, share, subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you can get apprised of whenever we upload a new video. And keep it 100, train hard, stay diligent, and we'll see you next time.